We shall not pass through the Fantasy Movie Appreciation Month without talking about Lord of the Rings right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den. Damn it, King Z, you're not here. Get on the camera. You're late.
My good sir, I'm not late, nor am I early. I show up right when I mean to.
He went ahead and quoted the big G to start the show. Well, I see it's going to be that kind of affair. All right, then. Now that our ducks are in a row and we're on the same page and in the same place, guys, we waited all month to do it because it's the great granddaddy of them all. The professor has laid down the law for how fantasy tropes and cliches all work, and they're only tropes and cliches now. They weren't that when he invented them 70 years ago, so we're going to treat them duly with the respect that they've earned and deserve. So we're really going to try and tighten the focus of the entire franchise down as best we can to the original trilogy. They came out about 20 years ago. They all still hold up. We're going to talk about all three of them. We're probably, for good measure and posterity, also going to mention the Hobbit trilogy for what that's worth, or the quadrilogy. They made 4 of them, 3 of them. I don't remember. I don't care. A little old school with the Rankin and the Bass cartoons, Rankin and Bass, whatever the studio was called back then. But that's like the 70s cartoon with some of the creepiest ass cartoon stuff I've ever seen in my life. And maybe a little Rings of Power just because it exists and it's out there. It's in live action form. But this is a big one. This is probably the biggest, I think, collective group takedown of a franchise I think we've ever attempted to cover.
Sound
about right? Because this is big dog right here.
This is the main one. That's why we saved it for last of the month. But we might have a bonus week.
Yeah.
So hold on to your horses as we go. So if you do want to hear what our bonus week is, you need to hit that subscribe button so you can be a part of it. Help us get to 200 before the end of the year. Hit that thumbs up so we can get this to other people, because it does help us in the algorithm. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss our bonus week.
Dude, before we even get into meta, do we even need to officially say things like spoiler warnings here? This stuff's 20 years old. I mean, the movies are 20 years old. The franchise is obviously 70, but how many years old now? 60, 65, 80, 70, something like that? And it came out in like,
it's
up there. It's older than we are.
Yeah, I think it came short.
So if you haven't seen this stuff.
Older than that, I believe it came out shortly after World War II.
That's why I was like, it might be like 70, 80 years old almost. I don't know. I'm not a date and the numbers guy. It's old. Guys, if you haven't seen them, take our word for it. Go see them now. Come back and check out our breakdown after and then comment. Absolutely. Out. I thought that goes without saying. That's a great thing to point out for people that aren't in the know. If you have the opportunity to see the extended versions, I would say especially of Return of the King, the third movie, go bang that out. It's well worth your time. It is a significant investment in the time department, but it's worth every minute. Absolutely so. Dude, what do we have laying around for like meta info of this, if anything? Do we have any of that good stuff, or is it too big to even broadly nail down?
To start off, the trilogy, when the rights were finally given to the studio and Peter Jackson was brought on to make a live-action adaptation of the Lord of the Rings book series, which is 3 books, Fellowship of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. So Peter Jackson was the director through all of those, including the Hobbit trilogy that he made, which is actually just one book called The Hobbit.
The shortest book, by the way, of those 4.
It was written by, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien was the original author of these books. You have Fran Walsh, and Philip Boyens also has a writing credit in this. So The Fellowship of the Ring first came out in 2001 was its release date. Now, what's significant about these movies, and it's never been done with a huge franchise like this before, is that they shot all 3 movies simultaneously, nonstop. Before this, you always had a break in between. They would film, and then you would have like 2 or 3 years in between the movies. Also, one of the things, and we're seeing it now, especially in the Stranger Things series, is the aging. You see like these kids aging, and they're not the appropriate age for the age that they're playing. Here, you see no aging because they filmed the whole thing. I think they filmed it over, I want to say 26 months.
It was just over 2 years. Yep, it was just over 2 years. I remember that from back in the day reading about it and whatnot.
26 straight months of filming in New Zealand, which is just gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to go to New Zealand, I highly suggest it because the landscape is just completely gorgeous. It's a photo op every 3 steps. The original movie, Fellowship of the Rings, they did break them down into like 3 different budget sets for each movie, technically. So it was, I mean, they're very similar. $93 million for the first movie, $94 million for the second movie, and $94 million for the third movie. Now, we always talk about ROI here. First movie, worldwide, $891 million.
Kaboom.
Second movie, $1.1 billion worldwide.
Kaboom.
And the third movie, $919 million. So you're looking at almost 1,000% return on your investment here.
Dude, it just makes you wonder. Well, like you said, we talk about ROI all the time. What you're talking about right now are Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity ROIs for massive budget blockbuster films that were adapted from, obviously from novels and brought to the big screen, but broadly appealing enough and, nerd appealing enough to just generate that kind of goodwill, that kind of interest, lockdown repeat viewings, probably made almost half the amount you just cited on each of those, probably cleared by physical media, home rentals, and things like that, because those are all still factors back in that early part of the 2000s when this came through.
When I was looking at the ROI on this, as the box office numbers, the majority of the box office was actually worldwide. It hardly...
That doesn't surprise me. Consider the author. It's not just an American thing.
$300 million box office wise between every movie that he did, but worldwide it's clearing $700 million easy.
Dude, I believe it. I'm sure somewhere in the research for the meta stuff, it probably mentioned how many languages and how many editions these books have been translated into over the decades. This might be the second most translated thing behind like the Bible, or maybe now it's behind Harry Potter, giving the larger, wider appeal of, global publishing and things like that now. But that this has to be a top 3 most published thing of all time. So it doesn't surprise me that worldwide it's
the Bible
massive.
Is still number 1. Number 2 is a very famous book, a self-help book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Still the number 2 book in the world and has the second most translations next to the Bible. Third, you have Lord of the Rings.
See, that's exactly my point. So, it's perennially a massive draw in print still. So, there you go. So it's beloved the world over, and with good reason. What? Anything else dinking around in the meta? Anything interesting you wanted to point out before I jump into a very broad synopsis of the trilogy?
It really pioneered the technology for motion cap CGI. With, of course, the Gollum, Smeagol character, Gollum, with his live action, like he was an animated creature that had a live action person portraying him with a motion capture that made everything happen. And it was one of the first movies that pioneered that primarily through the whole movie.
Do we know if that is that an ILM? Is that a Lucas? Is that an Industrial Light and Magic company that handled that effect? I in the back of my brain, I think that might have been a thing. Don't quote me though.
So another interesting fact is that we all know that I was in the Army. My last 5 years I worked in cyber defense. We all had to go to school to learn how to hack. One of our instructors, he actually worked on this movie. He was one of the CGI people in this movie, him and his wife. And he was talking about like cool. He was I think he was the arms and fingers of Gollum. Like he animated all those. When I was talking to this guy, it was great. Like he was talking about like when they did the Hulk, because he was also on the Hulk movie, that they had one person who was just dedicated to the eyebrows. Like to capture the eyebrows and do the eyebrows right. One of his funnier stories was talking about, I believe it was the second of the prequel trilogies of Star Wars, where Obi-Wan fights General Grievous. And you remember when he falls down and he has like his cloak is like flared out as he's falling, and so they had a NASA engineer in there who brought in a wind tunnel simulation to put in there, and they did it, and like his whole thing was like a cigarette roll above him as he fell in, and then Lucas is looking at it like, that looks like crap. He's like, but it's accurate to the, and he was talking about like, the wind speeds, everything like that, and physics. He's like, I don't care, make it look better. So that's how that all flared out and everything.
Oh, dude, see that's funny when like verisimilitude meets reality, and the creator just decides on the side about what looks cool. Because I'm a big fan of that myself. I apply that rule to sports all the time. You know, if the play looked cool, I don't care if technically the guy's out of bounds. You got to count it. You know, I'm sorry if he took an extra half step before a 720 windmill dunk, maybe you just let that slide. You know, I don't know. Rule of cool. You know,
I mean, if we're talking NBA,
stuff.
I mean, it's sports entertainment anyways. It's not really a sport anymore.
Yeah, I mean, so is football, so is baseball. I think hockey's really the only thing left. I mean, we can rule out boxing and MMA. That's not real anymore. But anyway, not that they might have ever been. But anyway, dude, let me throw down the synopsis here, just in case there is one person that maybe just got uncryogenically frozen and has never come across any of the Hobbit stuff or any of the Lord of the Rings stuff. Dude, guys, this is basic modeling stuff just done at an expert mastercraft level. You combine a bunch of things, a bunch of themes and elements of storytelling that you're very familiar with. The Dark Lord trope, the hero's journey prominently on display. There are elements of MacGuffins that need to be obtained and destroyed within the movie. We got other tropes that come in, like the power of friendship and found family. Just there's a billion things that if you ever find yourself on one of those like writing tropes websites, you could literally pick all of them out of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But the synopsis here is pretty simple. It's 50 or 60 years after the events of The Hobbit. Bilbo Baggins is ready to retire and go on one last adventure. He basically needs to, or is compelled to, give up the ring of power that he has, which allows him to become invisible, and bequeath it down to Frodo Baggins, his nephew. And once Frodo comes in contact with the ring, Gandalf kind of tells him, hey, dude, you know, we can't stay here. Someone dimed out your family. Its real owner knows where it is now after being lost for 1 billion years, and they're coming to get it. That means all you little hobbit guys are in trouble with your no standing army, no guns having selves. So Frodo has to set off on a dangerous journey to get the ring to the elves. That's where it starts. Yep. Events happen. Group is obtained. He gets to the elves, and the elves are like, nah, dog, you can't stay here. No, you got to take that shit to Mount Doom. You got to bring this all the way across the planet to somewhere else, to the worst place you'd want to go, because only in the volcano of Mount Doom, where the ring was made, can it be undone. And dude, and that's really the entire trilogy. It's, you have to move it from point A to point B. But the brilliance of the 3 movies is the character development, the subplots, and all the mini arcs that take place along the way, with, you know, the historic last stand of Boromir in Fellowship of the Rings, that translates into the larger heroic last stand at Helm's Deep in Towers, that translates to the even larger heroic last stand at the Battle of Pelennor Field in Return of the King, and then Aragorn's assault on Mordor. You know, I mean, so it's really straightforward. It's not simple. The books are not easy reads. Don't get me wrong. The language is written. It's a product of another age. So some of the verbiage in how Professor Tolkien writes is way outside a lot of folks' average reading level. The movies, I think, did a great job. We talk about this often, of adapting source material while remaining respectful, but at times condensing and omitting certain things that wouldn't translate well to screen. How does this synopsis all sound so far? I realize I've rambled a few seconds.
Nailed it on the head with that. And like you said, adapting what was written into a movie is kind of hard. Sometimes you have to combine like 6 or 7 characters into one character just to get the point across, because 1, budget, it costs money to have people on screen, and 2, time. Especially speaking roles. You don't want, right? No one's going to come see a 5-hour movie. So you have to break it down in time. We almost did for Return of the King Extended Edition, because that clock's just over 4, I think. But I don't think that was ever. I don't think they ever played that version after the fact in theaters, even for shits and giggles. So no, they have. Oh, cool, very good. Then I need to find that. The next time that rolls through, I'm doing it. All 3 movies extended cut with no credits, back to back to back, like opening credits, ending credits at the very end.
That's a 10-hour day at the theater, dude. My back would be all kind. Unless it's like IMAX in a comfy ass recliner, and I could take a nap.
4
Forget it.
Intermissions.
Oh, all right. So cool. Intermission's a clutch. That's cool. You know, if it ever comes up to the Northeast like that, I'd be down. I'd at least go see 2 Towers in King.
There's no way you could go 10 hours without using the bathroom. I mean, that alone.
Dude, licensed healthcare professional. Catheters are a thing, bro. I just sit there, nobody'd know. Shit. Get an astronaut diaper. Nobody'd know. But the Winter Wolf Den is not condoned peeing, and you see it at the movie theaters. Dude, I love these. I'm gonna jump right into this guy, dude. Who doesn't love these movies? I mean, I suppose there's 1% of people on either side of a like a movie spectrum that don't like it. The absolute purists that just needed everything done line by line, verbatim, like we just talked about how that could never be a thing. Those folks probably. I know there are people nitpicking when Aragorn gets the sword, or they invented bigger things for Arwen to do in Fellowship and this and that. Like, fine, whatever. You guys have your gripe. And then there's 1% of people that just aren't into fantasy at all. And that's too bad for them. They're missing out. I pity them. I honestly do, that they're missing out. But I think everybody else in the middle, that massive hump in the middle, love these movies. We talk about, you and I, like TNT movies all the time. Like if some shit's on and you fold in the laundry, or, you're fixing something around the house, it goes on, it stays on, and I watch it from whatever point it's in because I'm just down. Like those are these three movies for me, for sure.
You want to hear a personal thing about this movie? So
yeah, dude, sure, fire away. This is all about.
Movies helped me get through one of the hardest times of my life, and this was 2001. Yep, 2001.
Yep, Fellowship was 01.
I'm talking about 2021. My bad, 2021.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to figure out which 2020 it was. It was 2021. My wife got COVID. She got COVID, pneumonia. Not ammonia. Yeah, pneumonia. And
no. They didn't have a COVID ammonia. They didn't have
that.
Have.
But she ended up in the hospital, and she was placed on a ventilator. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't go see her because, one, they wouldn't let me in, and two, I had COVID myself because we got it together. And I was just stuck in my apartment. And the only thing that helped me kill a lot of that time where I would just sit in and worrying and stuff like that was watching the extended cuts of these. No, it did not take my mind off my wife. I was always thinking about her, but it just was that numbing thing that you could put on, watch, and, just make the time go by, because that's all it was just a waiting game at that point. Luckily, she was taken off the ventilator, I believe, 5 or 7 days after being placed on it, and then we came home 2 days after that. So everything's good. Everything's grand. So these movies has a special place because they were with me during a very hard time in my life.
I think I think a lot of people would share that kind of sentiment. I know for me, when Towers came out, I was a much younger wolf back then, 2003 or 2004 when they released. I think it was 03.
Towers was 2002. They were released one every year. 2001, 2002, 2003.
Okay. So it was in the same age bracket, much younger wolf back then, and in a really dark place professionally, in between jobs that I hated, being miserable, being an absolute git to everybody around me, to the better half I had at the time. Awful to my family, awful. Went to see Two Towers, and I'll never forget that there were two scenes that absolutely broke me in that movie. And guys, we're obviously not doing a scene by scene here because I don't think YouTube would let us do a 30-hour video and post it. And King Z's undisclosed location wouldn't upload the damn thing in less than a month anyway. So we're just I got some themes I want to hit on, but I just wanted to mention these couple scenes in Towers real quick, just in conjunction to what you were saying about getting through some things. There's that one part where Gandalf reveals himself as Gandalf the White to Theoden, who was still under Saruman, by extension, Wormtongue's kind of evil curse, kind of like stealing his mind, making him a decrepit old man. And Gandalf does the thing and releases him from the curse, and then he hands Theoden the sword. And Theoden kind of draws the sword, and his face is all returning back to his normal self. And that really hit me. But obviously, the scene that killed me in Towers, and I'm sure this was the same for everyone, at the end of the movie, the Helm's Deep thing, Gandalf just appears on the hilltop by himself. And you're like, oh, fucking thank God. Gandalf's here. Hopefully he brought a nuclear missile with him. And then Éomer and the Rohirrim mount up behind him. When they come down that hill and the sun crashes, it just obliterates the orcs. And you're like, that. I need that. I need that. Like, that's dawn. That's daylight. And like, I felt about 1,000,000,000% better about life in general after that. And that feeling never really left me, having seen that movie. Good movies can absolutely get you through some shit. Absolutely. So I'm right there with you, dude. Right there with you. Especially when they're done powerfully like that and with meaning and with intent, and I feel like a lot of stuff that we do on screen now, like present day, it's just there to be there. It's just shit that just gets belched up onto the screen and means nothing. Two towers will always mean something. The horn of Gondor being blown will always mean something. Like, that's just how that is, I could gush about this stuff all night. So we're going to focus on the main trilogy. I just wanted to hit up some themes and get your just take on some themes. You ready to play the theme game real quick? So let's do it. So for me, killer themes throughout the whole trilogy, really, all three of them. Courage, obviously. Like, that. How is that not like a central tenet of the trilogy? Courage, loyalty, and the found family thing. Is I think when we start off, the hobbits have their little friend group. They're all buddy best friend in the Shire, and that's cool because it's nice seeing normal everyman characters. There's nothing special about them. Frodo's kind of a dick in a couple of ways. He's the weak will. Do we all know Sam is the hero of the story?
I was going to get to that. That was one of the things. It's like he is the true hero of the story.
Okay, dude, that could be you. I'm gonna punt that to you. Dude, you take Sam,Ll take Aragorn because that's what I'm gonna do. All right, because I love me the Aragorn line. That's one of my favorite things in fiction. All right. And the hobbits got their thing, but I think another one of the compelling, interesting bonds that develops over the movie, because you can see it easily, Gimli and Legolas. Oh, yes. They're both racist dickheads at the beginning. People gloss that over, like they hate each other for who they are, not because of any direct deed.
Elves and dwarves never got along in any fantasy, and this was portrayed. But then it shows like when they're working together, it could build that friendship between them. Yep,
because they start off their first scene together is them arguing over, I'll go on the mission because I'd rather be dead than see the ring of the hands of an elf. And then when you fast forward to Return of the King, when they're about to duke out the battle, Gimli says, of course, I never thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf. And Legolas gives him that grin. He's like, what about side by side with a friend? And Gimli gets all choked up. And he's like, I could do that. And now, dude, I'm choked right up there with him because I'm like, that took them 9 hours to get there, but you dig it. It works. You know what I mean? It's 100%
like
work. And none of it's cheese.
Their whole take
none of it.
In Helm's Deep when they're fighting and they have their kill count. He's like, I'm already at 16. And he's like, 21, 23, 24.
He's like, I got 2 already. I'm at 16. Clink, clink, clink. Yeah, that's their bro back and forth. That works. That's good stuff, man. But give me your read on courage as a central theme in this.
Well, I mean, courage is one of the central themes of all three books put together, because to leave your home, to complete a mission, to protect your home is one of the most courage things you do. Courage isn't just, being that bravo, big, muscular guy who just runs into battle. Courage is having fear, but doing it anyways. And that was what you saw all the way through. Yeah. Now, you see a little bit of corruption, of course, because the One Ring isn't completely evil and stuff like that. But he had that backbone with him that helped him get through. And, Aragorn, going from a ranger to the king, he had to build himself up to that because he was scared of what his destiny was, but he had to face it anyways. And, he was a ranger because he was hiding from who he was supposed to be.
Self-imposed exile. Self-imposed exile. And one of my favorite parts when we talk about courage in these guys, like you said, just an extension of it. It's not the guy that has the highest kill count or the most reckless guy to run in first. We're talking about courage. I always think back to the hobbits. These guys are 3 feet tall, but there was no quit in any of them. You know what I mean? It was always each of them. They get the honor at the end of Return of the King. They get because they all played a pivotal role. They weren't just passengers on this adventure bus. Frodo obviously had the biggest burden. He carried the ring 99.8% of the way. Sam had courage every opportunity he needed it to back for Frodo, even when Frodo dogged him. And even the other 2 hobbits. One of them actually goes to war with I can't remember her name now. Not Arwen. The blonde chick from Rohirrim, you know what I'm talking about. He rides in on the Battle of Pelennor with her, and then Pip and Merry or Pippin, who I always reverse him, is the one that basically tells Gandalf, dude, the king over here in Gondor is fucking nuts. He's about to burn Faramir. You got to come in here and do something. But they all have their things that they do. Merry,
he was with because he actually suited up for battle too for the defense of the castle,
right?
And then
And they were like, nah, dog, you're going to weigh us down.
But I mean, a lot of people chalk them two up to just comic relief. Like, I honestly forgot that until I had the second watch through when I watched all 3 extended cuts and was like, they're the ones who brought the Ents into the battle.
Yeah, dude, I was just going to say it. They tricked Treebeard basically to taking the long way around so he could see the burning of the forest at the place closest to Isengard. Dude, I think they apologized to him. I think it's Mary that says, dude, I'm sorry, but you needed to know. And dude, that dude gets all kinds of heated. Whew, heated. Yeah, and if they hadn't done that, they lose. That's a loss. Franchise ends right there, guys. Like
they needed them to take down the first of the 2 towers.
The tower at Isengard, right? Yep.
Now, did you see the overlining theme in the 2 towers of Germany and Japan in this? The 2 towers.
As World War II as Axis powers. You know, when I was 20 and seeing these things, probably not. But I mean, if I rewatched it now and you were contextualizing it like that, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I picked up on.
You could see that.
Even the first time I watched it in 2002, I'm like, this is, and knowing the time era that Tolkien was at his prime and he was like outlining these books was right around that time. So.
Oh, definitely. I mean, because his framework for writing the books in general was that he was a great opponent of the industrialization of the world. He was in favor of a return to a more agrarian, not totally agrarian, but like to pump the brakes on industrializing things and against strip mining and tearing things down to build the fires of industry, as Saruman called. He was very much opposed to all of that kind of stuff. So, but you could draw a bunch of parallels with that stuff. But yeah. I love all of that stuff when we talk about the courage and the loyalty stuff, because I think those are the values that get under reflected in a lot of modern day stuff when we focus more on anti-heroes all the time. All of our villains are sympathetic. Dude, fuck Sauron. I hate him. I don't care. I don't need to know his motivation. He
wanted to conquer.
You know what I mean? I don't need
the only thing that he wanted.
Saying, that's it. Saying, don't care. He didn't need to be any more 3-dimensional than that. You know. Any major theme that kind of just draws you into this whole thing?
I liked what you said with the found family, or just the family you choose, because
right.
Pippin, Merry, Frodo, and Sam, they chose each other.
Yeah, they're friends. They're not brothers. They're not blood relations. Right.
You have Frodo Baggins. You have Sam Wise. Yep. Which kind of fits him perfectly. Yep. His last name is perfect. And I don't know Merry and Pippin's last name.
Pippin's last name is Took, and I can't remember the other ones. Because Gandalf says it when he busts them taking the firecrackers at the beginning. He takes the fire. when he pinches them by the ears, he says both of their full names. His real name isn't Pippin, it's Peregrine, I think is his full name, but his nickname's Pippin, But they say, they're not brothers. They're not supposed to be like older brother, little brother.
So you also see like character growth. Like character is like, if you don't know how to develop a character, watch these characters from start to finish.
For sure.
The only person who doesn't change but is just super important is Sam. He doesn't really change. He doesn't have a change arc, but his arc is so important because without Sam, none of this would have been completed. Sam is the backbone that carried this story, that carried Frodo and pulled him by the net shift to get him to where he needs to go.
Yep.
Carrying the food, pushing him on, motivating him, saving his life.
Personal security.
Frodo tries to go off on his own when he's been corrupted and he's also been manipulated later in the movie. Yep. It was Sam who came back and kept him from pretty much dying.
Yeah, because the Shelob had him at that point. Giant ass spider had him by the time Sam showed back up to put him down or to break him out. A lot of people mistakenly think that you need they call it the positive character arc where the character learns something and is different by the end of the story they're in, and that's not true. There's 3 arcs that I'm sure you're aware. There's a positive arc where they learn something and they change for the better. A negative arc or the corruption arc where they learn something and become worse, or they have that fall, or a flat arc. And a flat arc is a sorely forgotten, I think, arc in fiction. These are the arcs that apply to characters like James Bond or Harry Dresden. Like, they are who they are. They might learn a little something to help solve the problem of something that they're in going forward, or in that particular book or that particular movie. But by the end of the story, they are still who just they are. That's Sam in this book. Like Sam starts as the best person in the book, the purest heart, the most capable person there. And he carries, like you said, the group on the way through. Everybody else either literally needs to, like, play nice in the sandbox, overcome your fear of your destiny, like you said with Aragorn and Gandalf to a degree. So I think there's a lot to be said about those arcs, but I think the masterpiece that is the trilogy is that there's some of all of those. And it's not just everybody learns to become the level 50 version of themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I can definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. Dude, I want to hit on world building if you're ready to bounce off of arcs.
And it's the most tragic
hit it,
arc
dude.
out
Hit
of
it.
all of them. And that's actually Gollum's arc.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying.
He is a tortured soul who the ring has completely corrupted and completely changed who he was. He was actually a hobbit who became whatever Gollum is, who's eating like raw fish and stuff like that. And like you didn't see the battle in his head. I mean, you can't see crazy any much better than how Gollum was portrayed. Like it's hard to do dialogue in your head in a movie. You have the voiceover, which is cheap. You have him talking to a random B character, or he's just one of those people who just talks out loud like I am in real life. But Gollum watching the inner conflict and like how they did the camera cuts back and forth to like nice Gollum to evil Gollum, and then watching his art as he completely grows, and then eventually getting what he wants, but at a huge cost.
I think there's two bonus features to point out in the middle of that part of the conversation. Number one, obviously Gollum being played by, I'm going to let you answer the question because he's your boy. There you go. There you go. I mean, there's a reason you got the performance you got. The guy knows what the guy knows. And then Gollum's arc is especially tragic because it starts at a low point. It has an upward trajectory where Frodo's starting to accept him and he's starting to become part of the group. But because the misunderstanding screws him when Frodo tries to talk him down and get out of the enchanted forbidden pool thing, because he gets incarcerated at that moment, all the trust that he had built with Frodo is ruined, and he goes back into the whole PTSD abused survivor outlook on life, where he's like, oh no, I'm withdrawn back into myself, progress flushed, now I'm an evil dick, now I'm gonna bite your finger off, take the ring in a movie. So it's even better because it goes up and then it just like they just yank the rug right out from underneath him and your heart breaks when it happens. It's like, dude, perfect. Ugh, creepy. Cut that out of the video. We're gonna bleep that out. That's not good for the kids. That was good. That was bang on though. One of my favorite things about Tolkien on film, world building stuff. Oh yeah. Because each place they go, right, is so visually distinctive, so interesting, dude. So interesting to just look at, right? But one of the things I love most about it are the musical cues for world building. Tell me dude, if I hum out the first few notes to the Shire, bum 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 da 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 dun, dun, dude, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It automatically instantly invokes that feeling of the fucking Shire, of being at the bar. You're at the bar, you're having a half pint because they think that's the big one with your buddies. You know what I mean? And they use the music in this to tell its own story because they have that parts in the Shire. And then, of course, when the guys get back at the end of the trilogy, they're all bumming around the table and Sam finally gets his nerve up to ask Rosie to dance, which turns into the wedding. And that the whole time, that music's playing right through it. You know, so the music is a live part of this movie. The same thing when they get to Rivendell, do the same thing when they get to Gondor, and there's that really somber, which turns in and then they up pace that for the battle scenes when they charge. So that music always comes full circle, and it's brilliant. I love the world building in this movie, in this world.
Music is so important to film. Let's talk about this. Music tells you how to feel. And especially when you're changing places like they do in this, you need that musical cue and changing just a little bit. You can see it a little bit, but when you have that music, you have the full senses of the seeing, the hearing. You can't have smell, but they should add that to film.
Good. Not good. I don't need that.
But it brings you completely in. Like, music is so important to film in general. I mean, watch any fight scene without music. It's not there.
Boring as fuck.
Music tells you how to feel, or that that long walk down the dark hallway, if it isn't the music that's building the tension, then you're just watching someone walk down a dark hallway. Music,
Right.
you can't express how important music is to film because it literally tells you how to feel.
I think I like what I like most about all of what you just said is that in a world that's as big as Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings, because there are so many musical cues that happen in different places. Like they think about when Gandalf duels the Balrog and he hits, Frodo with the, run you fools bit. The music as they're escaping the goblins in slow motion is all very somber. It's very remorseful. They get outside. They leave the cave system. They're out on the rocks. Pippin's crying. Merry's crying. I think one of the things that works best about music in Lord of the Rings, that Middle Earth is so big and that the music not only varies place to place very effectively, but it also varies in tone as it's supposed to. Like if you remember in Fellowship, Gandalf has just sacrificed himself battling the Balrog, and he tells Aragorn and Frodo, run, you fools. They get out of the cave complex, they're dodging goblin arrow fire and everything else. But when they get outside, the music, it just drops, right? It gets all somber and sad. Pippin's crying, Merry's crying. Boromir's trying to comfort one of them. Gimli looks like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And Aragorn shows up and he's like, no, get them up. We got to go. And then Boromir's like, no, for pity's sake, give them a break and this and that. And Aragorn's like, no, dude, by my time, these hills will be crawling with orcs. We got to go. You know what I mean? But the music there in that moment is they kind of cut into a little bit of slow motion. They slow things down. If your heart's not in your throat with these guys, like you haven't been paying attention. And they manage to recreate that feeling every single time it's important. Every time. There's no wasted scene anywhere, I think, in these 9 movies. These 3 movies, these 9 hours, as they average out. There's just so much good stuff in all of them.
One of the greatest moments for me is Helm's Deep, when you actually get to see it for the first time. And how it's all dark and green. You talked about this earlier, like on the 5th day when you look towards the east. And then the sun's rising. It's so metaphoric of the sun finally rising on them through their whole their struggles. And they were lined up in the keep itself, ready to do the last charge.
Last line.
Charge out the door. And they're like, it's the sun. And then you just see them, and then it's Gandalf. And then
you can hear the voiceover. Yeah. And we talk about when we talk Brandon Sanderson, we talk Promise of the Premise a lot, but I think this was kind of a direct and like not metaphysical. This was a Gandalf told him when he left the group, I gotta go get some backup here. Get to Helm's Deep. On the first light of the 5th day, look to the east. He's basically said, if you hold out that long, if your faith holds this long, everything's gonna be straight. You'll take some losses along the way. You win, and they did. They did. They took a ass whooping
as well.
Dude, that was awesome. How cool was that, by the way?
Yeah.
How cool was that as a moment? Because again, musical cues, you start to see, you hear the footsteps of the march, but it's the elvish music, and then you see elven armor, and then the wood elf that showed up that held him at arrow point in the first movie is back and is like, it'd be our honor to kind of do this one more time, fist bumps. And dude, that's good stuff. The alliance is strong. I like that I dig. That whole movie is good, but that's one of the banger scenes. Everything in that last third of that movie is really good stuff. One of my favorite, we skipped over Fellowship a little bit just in terms of like how great it is, because it really is. I mean, this isn't an example like where everybody kind of knows A New Hope is the weakest entry in the original trilogy, I think, except for the Death Star stuff and some of the like the lore and the world building is kind of cool, but it is kind of slow at different parts of the movie. Fellowship of the Rings is not that. Fellowship of the Rings is a standalone, is a banger of a flick. It gets off with a little exposition just to bring you into the world because it is so unfamiliar, I think, to a lot of people, because there was probably a bunch of people that hadn't read it because it had been out of the zeitgeist for a while in 2000.
Also, it is a complete tribute, like tip the cap to J.R.R. Tolkien with the way they started it and the way they finished it. Like when the final scene right before the final scene of Return of the King, where he's finishing writing his book and he closes it.
Yeah,
and that's the end of the trilogy. I was like, that is just so perfect. Yep.
Right, because the beginning of Fellowship is Bilbo. After they do the exposition of the War of the Ring before, the first real scene of Fellowship is Bilbo scribbling the end of his the beginning of the end of his memoirs, right? One of my favorite scenes from Fellowship, and I'm going to cite this as my particular, no, we always liked strong female characters. When we meet Arwen, she gets the drop on Aragorn. She's like, what's this? A ranger off his guard. And she's already kind of cool, but you realize right away it's a friend. We get the former love interest thing later, but she's concerned for Frodo, so we're already ingratiated to her for that. She wants to help. We're ingratiated for that. She's like, dude, I'm the faster rider, which nobody cared about in 2001 because she was a woman. Dude, she's an elf. Fans of the genre know they're the ones that will ride quick. We get that. It's you dickheads today that don't get that want to break everything down into check boxes and assign points to things in victim stack, right? She loads Frodo up on the horse, takes off, and says, if I can make it to the river. Again, there's always the clock. If I can make it to the river, the power of my people will protect me. So there's faith, there's a ticking clock. The ring wraiths show up. We get this badass chase through the woods, right? And then she gets to the river, and in probably one of the all-time most badass female character moments ever, she's got the cut on her face from where the tree it was like a branch she rode through, cut her. So she's dripping a little bit of blood. She draws the sword, her horse rears, and she goes, if you want him, come and claim him. She's talking to like six of these things, right? And she basically BTFOs all of them because the minute she suckers them into the water, she summoned up the wave to come through. And I love the special effects. It's dated now, but the first crashing through of the wave are all shaped like horse heads, or the water that sweeps through. And I just love it, dude. I love that so much. I love every bit of that part.
Special effects, and like this movie blends special and practical effects to a master level. Like, yes,
whole trilogy, dude. Whole trilogy.
They
whole
still
thing.
use miniatures like they do Star Wars, Indiana Jones. They still use miniatures, but then they innovated with the new CGI as well to bring some of the story to life. I mean, magic's hard to do without CGI. I just let you know that. But this was a masterclass on how to blend it together. Like you said, technology's improved. You can make it look a little bit better. I mean, it was 22 years ago that the first one came out.
Yeah.
So it was actually around this time. It came out around Christmas.
Yeah. Yep. They were all December releases. That's right.
So that blend of special effects,
miniatures, blending,
effects is how it should be done. Unlike some of the stuff we're getting today, where it's just straight CGI, green screen, everything type movies and shows. You need practical effects. Practical effects brings more to it. Yes, I can make an explosion in After Effects and then throw in all the particles and everything and make it look like and like do some little like light movements to make it look like I was there and then it exploded in front of me. But having like just a board with dirt on it and me step on it and then put the CGI explosion over it, having that dirt, the real dirt actually flying and getting on me instead of just doing it makeup afterwards, brings so much more effect and feel, putting you more immersive in the movie than it would just straight CGI.
Dude, of course, man, because the practical always adds weight. I mean, we say the same things, like we just saw Thanksgiving the other day for horror movies and things like that. Practical effects there go over a long way too. Like if you actually break out the squib work and some bloody raw meat, to do any of your gore work, and you throw the corn syrup up there with the red dye, it looks better than like you said, a fake After Effects bullet impact point. It looks like trash. And if you've ever seen movies that came out before 2010, when I think all that stuff really started to proliferate out of control with the CGI, because it was just now good enough to be really good. At that, I think 2010 it started to get really good. Like before, if we start getting back, we had things like The Matrix in the late 90s, and that was all very cutting edge kind of stuff. We had Jurassic Park in the mid 90s. Those dinosaurs still hold up today. Somebody over there sold their soul to get those things done. Those look real. They look real. I don't care.
That is actually called the turning point in cinema, is Jurassic Park, of when CGI actually became...
Is when they really got kind of good. Okay. I mean, I could see that. But I think I think that needle has shifted way past now, and we got into things like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, and the late 90s, early 2000s. Everything's too shiny, everything's too clean, everything's too sterilized, everything looks like fucking crystal. It loses something when everything looks like I know I'm being lied to. It's why shows, when we watch the Star Wars stuff, one of the things that we pointed out was a better part of Andor, if you remember, is when we got into the back alleys of like Andor's hometown that the Empire was coming in to lock down to squeeze him out. Everything was dirty and dusty. It looked like a mining outpost, people's gear. Like he had the one friend that worked in the processing plant or the junkyard or whatever. He's coming out, his gloves got soot on him and shit. He looked like a guy working a 9 to 5 for his credits. You know what I mean? But then when we juxtapose with sequel trilogy stuff or crappy shows like Kenobi, Dude, how do you live in the desert and work at a meat cleaving job and not be dirty? But they did. I mean, that's how that was. But this isn't a Star Wars thing. This is a Lord of the Rings thing. And I love the fact that when they filmed a lot of those scenes, you were talking about miniatures. Let's talk about live action and hiring extras. Every single time they did one of these epic cavalry charges, that was a dude or a chick on a horse. They're not.
Didn't do
right.
the classic. Circle these three and then expand it out. Which I mean, it's easy to do, but having the
Rings of Power,
real people do it. And one of the greatest things about the extended version is if you watch all the way through the credits, every one of those orcs, every one of those soldiers has their name in their credit.
Shout out. Yep. Fact. Yep. Absolutely. And again, it's that's the human version of the special effects you were just talking about, is when I can watch Rings of Power, which I won't because I watched 3 episodes and that was enough. But there were videos made, if you guys go back a year and look it up, they had scenes where it would be like me addressing a crowd, a small crowd, like a public square kind of situation. And YouTubers like freeze frame something and they were like, this dude in the front row is also in this row, but they edited out the color of his tunic into something different. And then he's back here again, but they removed his hair and he's bald back here. I mean, this scene only required 30 or 40 people. They couldn't find 30 or 40 extras and pay him daily minimum or whatever you guys call it and tell him just to stand there and shut up and film this scene.
With background artists like that, where they have no speaking, you guys call them extras, but we refer to them as background artists.
Whatever the PC thing is to call them, we'll call them. Right.
Back when that one was filming, I think the minimum was $150 for 8. So you make $150 for 8 hours of work. Anything over 8 hours, you'll be making time and a half.
Okay. Amazon spent $2 billion on this show. Pay the extras. Pay them. I don't care.
A lot of that did go to set building. Like they built all of that so it could be there forever. So a lot of front load cost on that first budget.
I know you champion the show on that level. So I'm going to give you I'm going to let you have that.
I like that idea.
They could
That's
still
a great idea. No matter how the show.
No. I mean, and that's what. Sure. I mean, Mission Impossible did that with their last movie. They front loaded a lot of stuff into Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's an intelligent business decision to do that. As far as the set building and the assets go, pay your people. It'll cost you $500,000 to pay 100 people, time and a half times however long it took to shoot the 5 scenes in those 3 episodes where they had that one guy addressing the crowd. You know what I mean? It's not like that's not in every show addressing an arena of people like the Star Wars Jedi versus Clone Trooper, Jedi versus Battle Droid things in episode 2. You know, where you had literally a billion people that all looked at fine, whatever. Different show, different movie. But I love that about how they treated everybody. You know, they added that level of authenticity. They did that with the armor. They did that with the horse gear. A lot of that stuff was made by hand to replicate what they would have been medieval stuff. And then it was distressed over real time while they were making it. So they chipped away at it. They scuffed it up. They beat it up to make it look real. So when soldiers ride into battle, it looks well worn. And I love that because it makes it look real. One of my favorite things about it. Now, give me a favorite scene from Fellowship before I jump topics here. First movie, favorite scene.
Favorite scene.
Yeah. Anything you want. Slow scene, action scene, character scene, whatever.
The first introduction of Gandalf. I did it to start the video. I love that.
Dude, it's a good one. It's a good one. True. You fall in love with him as a character right away, too.
Also, especially when he's... Was it Ian... Yeah, Ian McKellen. I mean, he's just a fantastic actor to begin with.
Genius.
So
no.
You're getting grade A
I love that.
acting and just a great, lovable character. You get Frodo and get to see him before everything happens to him.
Yep. That's a great scene. I love that when Gandalf's driving the cart away, he trips it that way. A couple of fireworks fall out for the kids who were trailing him, and they get all happy and they're like, "Yay, dude!" It's just really endearing to see that, you know. And it works that way. When bad shit happens to these people later, you're like, "Oh no, that's it, dude. We got to gear up. We got to roll up into the Shire. They need backup." You know. I like that as a good scene. That's a quiet scene that I like. I'm gonna match you on this, and I'll say one of my favorite scenes from Fellowship is Aragorn saying goodbye to Arwen on the bridge. I love that whole segment. Dude, the music turns into this dreamy love ballad kind of tone. And she asks him, "Do you remember when we met?" And he's like, "I thought I walked into a dream," and this and that. And then you get some of the tragedy of their backstory where like she's immortal but wanted to be with you, and you told her no because that wasn't, she should be with her people and be allowed to like live forever. And it has lasting impact later on. Like it guides the decision her father makes about whether or not to back them up in battle or not, based on the decision she made because she loved a mortal guy. You know, great scene. It's all feels very surreal because it's starlit. It's all. I'll do another juxtaposition here. It feels elvish when you're in Rivendell doing that stuff. There's just something ethereal about them. And then again, when they get later into the Elves of the Wood with Cate Blanchett, who's the only Galadriel live action, by the way, guys. The chick that plays her on the show can't hold her jock. Sorry. Not sorry. Just can't. Guys, impromptu outro here. We realized we went really long. So this is going to be the end of part 1. Please take the tape out, flip it over, and reinsert for part 2 on side B of our Lord of the Rings
VHS,
breakdown.
it's tape 2. Yeah.
Do they have 2 tapes? All right, let's get out of here.